Sabha commemorating 75 years of independence. And as a part of this, we would like to present to you the University Law College Model United Nations Samvaad 2021. The ULC MUN Samvaad is a series of panel discussions intended to bring about awareness and spread knowledge on several interesting and key issues faced in the 21st century, from environmental sustainability to space law and international security. I, Niharika D'Souza, student of University Law College, Bangalore University, along with Mr. Satyajit MS, consider it our privilege to be the moderators for this event. On this auspicious occasion of Gandhi Jayanti and the birth anniversary of Lal Bahadur Shastri, we at University Law College consider it our privilege to host today's panel discussion on the topic, India as an emerging global leader in environment sustainability. In the wake of several global crises brought about by natural and human activities, the toll on the environment is unprecedented. Hence, we believe that this panel discussion will help enlighten the participants about the nuances and intricacies of environmental sustainability and its connection to other spheres with reference to India. We hope to provide the participants with the required insights on the ground reality of the prevailing circumstances in the field of environmental policy. To begin the event, I now call upon Ms. Namrata Sharma, student of University Law College, Bangalore University, to invoke the blessings of the Almighty and render the invocation song.
Mahaganapatim manasa smarami Mahaganapatim manasa smarami Vasishta Vamadeva Divandita Mahaganapatim Mahadeva Sutam Mahadeva Sutam Guru Guhanutam Mahadeva Sutam Guru Guhanutam Marakoti Prakasham Shantam Mahadeva Sutam Guru Guhanutam Prakasham Shantam Mahakavya Natakadi Priyam Mahakavya Natakadi Priyam Mushika Vahana Modaka Priyam Mahakavya Natakadi Priyam Mushika Vahana Modaka Priyam Mahaganapatim Manasa Smarami Vasishta Vamadeva Divandita Vasishta Vamadeva Divandita Mahaganapatim
Thank you so much, Namrata, for that melodious rendition. At this outset, we have with us distinguished dignitaries present as a part of the panel discussion. I now welcome Professor Dr. Sureshri Nadagowda Sir, Principal and Chairman, University Law College, Bangalore University, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Niharika. Good evening and namaste to all the honorable guests and all respected colleagues and the students. And indeed, we are very happy to have this first program of this academic year, which we have started yesterday itself after successful completion of our LLB and LLM admissions for the academic year 2021-22. And today we have two important programs. One is discussion on India as an emerging global leader in environmental sustainability as a pre-Model United Nations conference, which is scheduled to be held between 8th to 10th of this month. And another important program is of launching of the Students Debate Society. And University Law College is well known for all its academic and extracurricular activities. as ULC has is already having the Society of Mooters, which has been organizing moot court competitions, national level moot court competitions since last 25 years. And this is another initiative of our students who have in fact come forward voluntarily to establish this particular society to keep themselves engaged in debates, discussions, and conduct model United Nations periodically. And on this auspicious occasion, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor K.R. Venugopal, a well-known academician and an able administrator who is known for his simplicity and hard work. And Sir has been a great backbone to all of us in the University Law College, despite his busy schedule. As Sir has told in the beginning that it is his sixth program. Of course, whenever we in the University Law College organize any program, he will be very happy to participate and advise us and bless us. And in fact, it is a desire of all. It was a desire of all our faculty members and students that the first academic program of this new academic year should start with the inauguration by the under the auspicious hands of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, and he has kindly consented to inaugurate this pre-MUN Samvaad and also launch the Students Debate Society. Thank you very much, sir, for your kindly consenting our request and being with us, sir. And I extend you a very warm welcome to this program on behalf of all our faculty and students. Sir. Welcome
Namaskar.
to you, sir.
Good evening to all.
Sir. Thank you, sir. We have on this occasion, Madam Jayasri Venkatesan. Madam is a member of Tamil Nadu Biodiversity Board, a well-known personality in the area of environmental issues, and who has kindly consented to be a panelist at our request. Thank you very much, madam, for accepting our invitation, and I extend you a very warm welcome to this program. We have another distinguished panelist, Madam Ms. Swati Ganeshan. She is an independent consultant and honorary adjunct fellow at Maritime Foundation. And thank you very much, madam, for accepting our invitation. And I extend you a very warm welcome on behalf of University Law College and all our faculty members and students. On this occasion, we have our esteemed colleagues, Professor V. Sudesh, former principal and dean. I extend you a warm welcome to you, sir. And Professor Dashrath, due to some unavoidable circumstances, he is not there. And in his absence, I welcome him also. We have our other faculty members, Dr. Satish Gowda, Dr. Jyoti Vishwanath, Dr. Chandrakanti, who are all associate professors. And also we have full support of our alumni, as our alumni association is very active. The Professor V. Sudesh is being a alumni of our college. He is the secretary of the alumni association and even chairman, and all the members of the alumni association. I extend them all a very warm welcome, and many distinguished invitees have also participated in this program. I extend them all a very warm welcome, and I also take this opportunity to extend a very warm and cordial welcome to all our students, particularly the students who have joined for LLB first year LLB and LLM program, and who have started attending the classes. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you so much, sir, for welcoming the gathering. It is now my privilege to introduce the esteemed panelists for today. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Jayasri Venkatesan ma'am. Dr. Venkatesan ma'am obtained a PhD in biodiversity and biotechnology from the University of Madras. Ma'am is a graduate and postgraduate in human science and community nutrition, and is an experienced social scientist, having worked on issues of conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and ecological restoration, with special interest in urban wetlands. Dr. Jayasri Venkatesan ma'am is the first Indian grantee for the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute Center for Tropical Studies, short-term research fellowship. She was also awarded the prestigious Rameshan Fellowship for Science Writing by the Indian Academy of Science. Having carried out field studies throughout India, she has to her credit 30 scientific publications and 1 book. She currently serves as Care Earth's Managing Trustee and member of Tamil Nadu State Wildlife Board, Tamil Nadu State Wetland Authority. Ma'am currently serves as Care Earth's Managing Trustee. Dr. Jayashree Venkatesh ma'am was awarded the Social Entrepreneur Award in 2014 for founding Care Earth Trust and her contribution to the restoration and conservation of the wetlands in Tamil Nadu. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being a part of our ULC MUN Samvaad. The next panelist for today is Ms. Swati Ganeshan ma'am. Swati Ganeshan ma'am has over 15 years of research experience and media experience. Ma'am's research is largely focused on policy analysis and geopolitical issues in the field of energy, climate, oceans, and sustainable development goals. Ms. Swati Ganeshan ma'am was a fellow and area convener, Center for Resource Efficiency and Governance, the Energy and Resource Institute, TEDI, New Delhi. Ma'am has led and contributed to research on blue economy in Asia Pacific, blue economy and sustainable development issues, regional energy cooperation, carbon neutral strategy roadmap for Indian sciences, role of energy in European Union and emerging power relations, assessing energy risks across fuels, coal and nuclear energy, hydropolitics in GBM basins, critical non-fuel minerals for India's strategic interests, and global and regional energy security corporations, among others. Ma'am has led and been a part of projects supported by Asian Development Bank, AETS France, UNESCO, Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, among others. She has successfully led and managed several programs and initiatives at the Energy and Resource Institute. Ma'am was the network manager of Sustainable Development Solutions, South Asian Secretariat hosted by the Energy and Resource Institute. She coordinated TEDI iTech capacity building programs for international participants supported by the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and has several publications to her credit. Ms. Swati Ganeshan ma'am is also a member of South Asia Women in Energy Network. She has a master's in international studies, security studies from the University of Birmingham, UK, and master's in mass communication from Jamia Millia Islamic University, Delhi. Thank you for being a part of our ULC MUN Samvaad, ma'am. It is truly our pleasure to host both of the panelists for today. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, of Bangalore University. Professor Dr. K.R. Venugopal, Sir, is an IEEE Fellow and ACM Distinguished Educator from USA for his outstanding contributions to the fraternity of computer science. He was the principal of University Visvesvaraya College for Engineering for 15 years. He has an illustrious and distinguished academic career with 11 degrees, including 2 PhDs. He has served UVCE and Bangalore University for over the last 4 decades. He received his ME in Computer Science Engineering from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics and Communication from UVCE, and has also obtained degrees in law, journalism, public relations, business finance, economics, industrial relations, and communications. Sir has authored and edited 72 books. These books are prescribed as textbooks and references in our country and abroad. He has published more than 1,000 papers in referred national and international conferences and journals. He has filed 56 patents and has been credited with 27 patents. He has established 2 engineering colleges and 2 schools in Bangalore. He is a social worker, philanthropist, and researcher. He has been a leading beacon of light and a role model for teachers and students. We express immense gratitude to Sir for being a part of this event, and it is our honor and privilege to host him today. I now request Professor Dr. K.R. Venugopal, Sir, to render the keynote address and launch the Debating Society of University Law College.
Good evening to all of you. I'm very happy that we are launching this academic year. Though we are able to start the classes physically, we have now started launching the academic classes virtually. But I'm happy that the timings have also changed. In fact, if you wanted to start this academic year in the evening at 5 o'clock, it would have been very odd. But with virtual programs, online programs, it has become very normal and usual to start the programs at this point of the day, that is at 5:30. I am very happy today that the panelists Jayashree Venkatesan and Swati Ganeshan, big achievers in the field of environment, have been here to share their experience. And I congratulate the Department of Law, that is University Law College, and its principal Suresh Nadagowda for initiating and starting the academic year at the earliest. We have with us also Sudesh, Professor Dashrath, Satish Gowda, Chandrakanti, Jyoti Vishwanath in this program. Talking about environment and sustainability. I am a computer science engineer, but how much I'll be able to talk or how much I'll be able to throw light is only you will all be able to imagine. But when somebody talks about environment and sustainability, I simply get this idea: water, air, energy, and climate associated with this. Population, living organism, and resources that are available. This is environment. So how do you balance this environment? We are always talking about the greenness. We talk about green waste, we talk about green transport, we talk about zero waste, we talk about green energy, we talk about green building. Everything we talk about, we will assign the color green to it. So that is environment. Because environment means it is forest area. Environment means we talk about ozone layer depletion. Environment means we talk about global warming and population explosion. All this, problems which we face day to day is related to environment. But how do you sustain it? How do you sustain it? So when you talk about sustainability, we are talking about food chain, food supply chains. We are talking about overgrazing, farmland losses. We are talking about overfishing, coastal populations. When you are talking about air pollution, we are talking about global change, stratosphere, and we are talking about ozone layer depletion in the stratosphere. We are talking about urban pollution and acid pollution, outdoor pollution and indoor pollution and noise pollution. When you are talking about water pollution, we are talking about sedimentation. Then we are talking about toxic chemicals. We are talking about oxygen depletion. We are talking about excess heat. We are talking about even solid waste management and hazardous waste. So whenever I think about environment, everything descends into my brain that, okay, we have to address all these problems. But are we going to address all these problems simultaneously or one by one or with whose support? It is all the government, the society, the individual, everybody have to participate in this in sustaining this environment and giving the future generation a better world to live. When we talk about how we have to improve the environment sustainability, we have always the 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle. How we are going to address this problem and how we are going to improve this 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse, and recycle, every aspect of it, whether it is human resource or whether habitat or whether it is even nutrient to the soil or renewable, non-renewable energy like wind and solar. All this will be addressed by one or the other organizations in this world. But how far we have been successful in addressing these issues? There is always, I have seen so many organizations coming up in the last 40 years to come and sustain this environment and provide a better environment for the future generation. And today I'm very happy that Jayashree Venkatesan and Swati Ganeshan are participating in this program and initiating our academic year in University Law College. I thank once again Suresh Nadagoda, Sudesh, Dashrath, Satish Gowda, Chandrakanti, and Jyoti Vishwanath for their presence, and all the students and wish them all the best in a fruitful and productive academic year. Thank you, one and all. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable words and blessings. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom and launching the ULC DebSoc. With great honor, I would like to announce that the University Law College Debating Society is going to be a platform for discussion and deliberation intended to stimulate debating culture, curiosity, and the passion for learning. We would like to announce the launch of the ULC DebSoc blog, a platform for students to pen down and share their views on pressing national and global issues. The ULC MUN, scheduled to be held from the 8th to 10th of October, is a flagship event of the ULC DebSoc. And this event, the ULC MUN Samvaad, is also part of this initiative. Thank you all for being here for the launch of the DebSoc. Without further ado, I would like to begin with the panel discussion for today. I now humbly request Dr. Jayashree Venkateshan ma'am to render her introductory remarks to the eager participants.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Respected Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor Suresh, Professor Sudesh, fellow faculty members, students, fellow panelists. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, especially because I have a great fondness for Bangalore. My first job way back in 1987 was in Bangalore as a front office assistant. So I hold that very dear. I used to work in Jalahalli, and subsequently, of course, I've come to Bangalore n number of times. And there is a strong fondness for me, not just for its climate, but also for the people and the kind of warmth that they show, which is something that I'm already experiencing here. So congratulations to ULC for launching the society.
Thank you.
Let me begin my short set of remarks. In fact, it was as early as 1972 that the link between poverty, development, and environmental and ecological conservation and protection was realized. When in the year 1972 at the Stockholm Summit on Environment and Development, India made a very strong pitch highlighting the fact that it is in those parts of the world where there is a lot of ecological richness that the most poor also stay. So they said you have to come up with an approach. India made this strong statement saying that the world has to come up with an approach wherein environmental conservation and development has to be reconciled. Now, the easier thing to do would be to take an extreme position. In fact, the respected Vice Chancellor did allude to the long list of attributes, the long list of issues that typify environment and ecology. It would be very easy to take an extreme position and say that the world is really going down the hill. We are all irresponsible. Human beings are irresponsible. Government is useless. Colleges are useless. Activists are useless. This is very easily said. But in reality, what we need to take up is actually a very pragmatic stand on issues. Let us look at what India has done over the last so many years in terms of ecology and environment. Not many of us know that, in fact, across the entire world, India, as early as the Arthashastra period, highlighted the need to have game reserves. In fact, the earliest reference to captive elephant management is in Arthashastra. We have that kind of a legacy, and that legacy needs to be cherished and celebrated. But even after that, we've had so many international conventions, international policies coming in, which dictate what needs to be done, what should not be done, while some, like the Climate Change Protocol, have very clearly outlined targets. There are others which are framework agreements. India has always been the first signatory or the first 10 signatories of any international convention. This is something that we need to recognize and appreciate. In fact, as recent as a couple of years ago, we signed the the Convention on Migratory Species. I will limit my comments only to what I know a bit of, which is biological diversity. So India is also the country which has actually followed up each of these signings and the ratification with a set of laws or policies that will actually enable translation of all this on ground. We have to remember that we're extremely diverse, not just in terms of the number of people and the kind of people that we have, but also in terms of the kind of biological diversity we harbor. Now, biological diversity in its simplest definition is the variety and variability of life and life forms. So it includes genes and goes on up to landscapes. Normally, it's operationalized at 3 levels: genetic level, species level, and at the landscape level. But what often gets sidelined or not spoken about is the fact that the biodiversity conservation and the convention that it actually belongs to also has two other operational principles which are equally or in fact more critical. In fact, the three operational principles of the convention are conservation of biological diversity, which includes all organisms, including humans. It is here that we have to remember that recognizing the fact that you cannot treat environment and ecology as an external attribute, that the world introduced this term biodiversity. Biodiversity includes humans in its ambit. So you cannot say flora and fauna and human beings. You'll have to say biodiversity. That's what is technically correct. So the second operational principle of the Biodiversity Convention is sustainable use of its resources. So it does not put a clamp on resource use. It says, please use all the resources, but use them sustainably. A point yet again alluded to by respected Vice Chancellor. The third, which is something that I am totally aligned to, is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the use. Now, many people limit it to benefits going to the marginalized communities and to sections which are normally not part of mainstream development, which is very correct. But to me, it also includes the younger generation. When we say fair and equitable sharing of benefits, whatever I have enjoyed or my previous generation have enjoyed, it is also my responsibility to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren have an equal opportunity to enjoy that. It is towards that we need to work. Now, India has established a National Biodiversity Act. It's in fact in the 2000, it was in the year 2002, we did that, followed up with the rules in 2004, and then subsequently we established the National Biodiversity Authority. Where are the challenges? I'm not saying this is all hunky-dory and everything is going on very smoothly. Given the fact that we are such a big country, there are challenges. The biggest challenge, of course, is we've lost much of the knowledge pertaining to biological diversity, ecological conservation. And this knowledge has been wiped clean in many places. It's been compromised in some places. It's been lost to a certain extent in some places. But there are still some pockets where this knowledge is being preserved. So ecological conservation, preservation, restoration, whatever you wish to call it, this also needs to include the domain of documenting all this knowledge associated with ecology. Only then we can make sure that we can come up with means, with projects, with initiatives that are largely aligned to our own interests, our own country's best benefit. So this is something that we have lost, and that's somewhere we need to focus upon. I will just take a couple of examples if I have a minute or so. Maybe just one example to show that things can be done. I don't want to leave this panel with a kind of a doomsday kind of a prediction or doomsday kind of a scenario. In Tamil Nadu, where I've been working for the last so many years now, 30 years now, we identified a wetland that had to be protected. This was bang in the middle of the city of Chennai, where the development was actually happening big time, and that's where we have the information technology corridor. It's just south of the IIT Madras campus. So when we identified that and when we were saying that this needs to be protected, not just for groundwater recharge and for surface water holding, but also to mitigate or address floods, everybody turned around and said, do you really seriously expect the government to announce 700 hectares of land as protected? This is prized real estate area. No government worth its salt would do it. Instead, find some other project, maybe way out in the Western Ghats or somewhere where nobody is bothered about what's happening. Find a project there and you do well. I said, no, let's attempt. Let's try. And we did a series of studies. It is here I wish to emphasize that any action needs to be backed by science. I always say ecology needs to be driven by heart and head. It cannot be just heart driven, because after some time it just collapses. You need your head and heart. We did a series of research studies and made sure that the government was given an opportunity to go through the studies with all its merits and demerits. Within 5 years' time, there was an announcement saying half of this wetland would be protected. And within the next 5 years, 300 more hectares were added to the protection. So in all, bang in the middle of the city of Chennai, you now have something close to 1,500 hectares of protected area. So this between the period 2000 and 2020. Things can happen, we can actually take action, but this needs to be, as I said, highly subjective, backed by data, backed by consultation, backed by people's aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. Without further ado, I now request Swati Ganeshan, ma'am, to kindly address the gathering.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I will thank the University Law College for inviting me here today. It's quite actually an August occasion, because I think it's very nice to know that you are starting off your academic year with the Model United Nations and a DEPSOC. A lot of interesting things. It's always actually good to also be in the middle of young minds. Because after some years you tend not to think out of the box and out of the purview of what you have actually been doing. And speaking to young people actually tells you that there is much more in the discussion that you can actually also work on and learn from. So definitely from that perspective, it's very good to be here. From the perspective of the topic and the theme that this has been actually told that I should have to, speak on beforehand, I would also say that I was born in Bangalore, and a whole lot of my family lives in Bangalore. So it's very heartening to actually receive the invitation from ULC as well. So thanks again, and thanks to the Vice Chancellor, thanks to Professor Suresh as well for having me here. The recently published report by the IPCC AR6 report actually, paints quite a very serious picture, wherein you do see that the current global surface temperature is going to increase and keep on increasing till the mid of the century, and to actually completely stop them. And to stop this kind of, exceeding of temperature, you need very deep cut reductions across the globe. And these deep cut reductions require quite a lot of concerted efforts, a lot of finance, a lot of technology. And this needs to come from both developed and developing economies at the same time. While it is definitely true that developed economies have really industrialized, move on ahead, and have been really at the core of the emissions story, but now developing countries are also moving in the same direction. But I think it also makes a lot of business sense and a lot of rational sense to actually take a course which makes us a little bit more cleaner in future, and create a future that is much more safer for us ourselves. While that is true, it is also true that countries like India and many other developing countries require a significant amount of finance to do this. And finance for climate-related goals or sustainability goals is significant, and it's not something that you can generate out of the blue. And in any case, when you are still trying to achieve energy access goals, when you're still trying to achieve nutrition security, when you're still in the midst of trying to take care of your poor, it's very also difficult for you to invest in very high-end technological as well as transitional aspects in the mitigation and the adaptation sector until unless you have considerable finance. It is very, very difficult to do so. And I think that's the reason where you see that you need the access to finance, and developed countries who have promised and have not yet delivered really need to do so that this could be accelerated at quite a large space. But even then, even with limited resources, even with significant population, and with so many challenging goals that India has actually been on track to at least reach the 2-degree goal target. Out of all the G20 countries, if you see, the Brown to Green report actually highlights that India is actually the only country which is on track right now, which is itself a considerable, an effort from a country which is developing, which is thriving, and which is still on the stage to move somewhere. Also, I think India has taken this specific route. There is, India has always been seen as one of those countries which keeps saying, developed countries need to do more, and as someone who is probably standing on the other side of the lane. But it has actually taken the steps such as the launch of the International Solar Alliance, and deployment of solar energy at such a massive scale that has not been done in many other countries as yet. Now we are actually moving into floating solar. We've already, NTPC has just established one of the largest floating solar, grids in the country. It is something to actually be very proud of, but it also highlights that there is a lot of challenge in this place for our country to actually achieve. So, if we actually look at it also, India is also trying to look at it from a sustainable finance perspective. As you can see, India just constituted an expert committee to provide an approach for sustainable finance hub and to try and see if we can create a sustainable finance hub as well. Many estimates highlight that we need over 2 billion to be some 2 trillion, so say, on a year to for climate action. And according to the reports, India requires quite a lot of investments and to achieve its sustainability and climate goals. It would be significant for us, especially the COP26, which is coming up right in the November 1st to 12th, wherein I think the Paris Accord and the Paris Agreement and the Paris Rule Book will be discussed. And much of it is, almost all of it is about financing. The discussions are about trying to see how you can probably talk about national pledges being raised, how countries would probably also provide a reach a consensus on the measures for carbon reduction and trading, and henceforth. And it is quite a basket of issues which is still out there which need to be discussed. Just a month back, we almost had another energy conference, and somebody said that, and also Jayashree ma'am also said that, you are actually taking from your next generation. You have to save it for your next generation, the resources and everything. Sorry, that's my son. But what you can actually see is that you have, national pledges need to be raised in the COP26, which I'm not sure how that would actually go if national ambitions will be taken forward. But India has actually really done significantly in the energy, in the climate mitigation areas, in the adaptation areas. And ma'am has already talked about how well we have done in the biodiversity area as well. And we are doing more on a very regular basis as well. So I think one needs to also take into account that India has, a lot of traditional knowledge as well, specifically in the sustainability sector, that really needs to be now taken into consideration as well. For example, we have, waste management has been quite a core aspect of largely how India has worked. And, whether it was conscious, unconscious, but it's been something that has been part of a larger value chain throughout industries, throughout households, everywhere. But that is something that needs to be nurtured and also needs to be actually taken forward, because that is some areas that will be very, very key in the coming years. Also, I think for India, I think we are already at a very, at a stage where we have ambitious targets to achieve. And I think we need to now put in more efforts into it to actually achieve those targets. And I think the young minds, young people, not just in this room, across the country, really have a lot to take forward, and I really have to put in a lot of efforts. But I think it's also on the older generation who have contributed, like me, to this particular problem as well, over a period of time, to really take and a really serious consideration on how we will really change the dynamics. For me, it's very, very important because I look at it also from a personal point of view. I have a son, and there is a whole a life ahead, and this next generations, all of you and every other generation who's coming back, needs to really be able to enjoy and be part, and we have access to resources the way we have had access to resources as well. And for that, one needs to really intensify the work that we are doing. I think the challenges are there, but for me, I think I start looking at solutions before I will try and address the challenges, because I think challenges are talked about almost all the time. You have a lot of questions. You have a lot of people talking about, oh, this is hard, that is hard. Yes, we are not able to do it. Yes, but I think the next question is, if this is hard, then what can we do to take it forward? And there are many things that people can do together when they come together, when they put their minds together. I hope your MUN is one good place for you all to discuss these aspects and see what you can all bring onto the table. For me, I think it's always good to take it, and debate it in the most interesting ways. There is a lot for me to learn. My learning curve is still going on. And for me, I'm on a daily basis, you recognize and you learn things. I think this is very important to even achieve sustainability. And it's not about new and modern things. It's also about what you have in your past, in your tradition, what you can actually now benefit and take forward. For example, food was actually highlighted by the Honorable Vice Chancellor. Food itself, actually only accessing locally sourced food itself reduces quite a lot of emissions. Right now, we actually have a lot of, food which is on our table, which is not really from your from your surroundings. What you're paying for is the emissions, the travel, everything. So, sorry. So from that perspective, I think there is much of learnings that we all have. And I think we all need to work on that. So I will stop here. And I think there is a question hour time, which I'm dreading because there is a whole room of potential lawyers in the group. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I will try and at best answer the questions as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your informative address, ma'am. And it was truly informative, and there were several aspects that you touched upon in your address. And just to bring it to your notice, ma'am, in the upcoming Model United Nations Conference, we are also simulating a UN committee, UN Environment Program, wherein we will be having UN Environmental Assembly, and we will be discussing and deliberating upon deep sea trawling with reference to global corruption and those aspects of clean ocean. So that is the thing that we'll be doing in our upcoming conference. However, now coming back to the conference, ma'am, you touched upon one basic aspect regarding the burden that the developing countries should take or have taken with special reference to India, and how the developed nations until now have already been the culprits rather in the 20th century and the 19th century and leaving us in this position. Now, moving on, ma'am, there is a binary. This is to both the panelists, the binary which exists when it comes to livelihood and environmental protection. As in, when a policy is being framed, or there is a policy which is to be implemented, there is a binary which is there with respect to the approach. That is, you either save environment or you either save livelihoods and opt for economic growth. So I would want to know your perspective regarding the same, starting with Dr. Jayashree Venkatesan, ma'am, and then followed by Ms. Swati Ganeshan, ma'am.
Okay, I have to respectfully tell you that the binary itself is fallacious. So this is something that I say in every class that I have, that to construct this as a binary is the first and fundamental mistake that we are making. See, when growth is something that is positive, you need to also build it on a platform that is positive. Now, let me illustrate it with a small example. The curd that you set at home, I'm sure there are enough microbiologists amongst you, is also biotechnology, just as the most sophisticated vaccine that you're going to introduce into this world. That is also biotechnology. Along the spectrum, a number of livelihoods could be built. For an engineer, if I have to give an example, constructing a road or planning for a road in a particular way where the local ecology is not compromised is one approach of doing it. But then cutting costs or yielding to certain pressure, building it in a manner where about 300 trees are chopped down is yet another thing. So in every sphere, you have these both sides of the coin. And we have now come to a point where livelihoods, when we're talking of livelihoods, I'm not limiting it to agriculture or hunter-gatherers or collectors, not that. All of us are people who are trying to eke out a livelihood. For each of us, ecology can become the stratum on which livelihoods can be constructed. And this was demonstrated rather well during the pandemic. See, the pandemic threw a lot of people out of jobs. It actually forced a lot of people to go back, migrants to go back to their hometown. But it also gave a lot of opportunities. E-retailing became a big thing, even from small villages. You just have to go into Facebook to see the number of women who are normally at home, homemakers, trying to sell wares. It may not be highly sophisticated, corporate, top-notch kind of a job. So there is this recognition that to say that environment versus development is shooting yourself in your foot. It has to be environment and development, conservation and development, smart thinking. You need to think smart rather than be stuck in a time warp kind of a zone where you say environment, if you protect environment, everything else goes for a toss. Likewise, it also makes a lot of sense to set aside certain areas as inviolate. You cannot open up, at home we don't open up our safe boxes or our bank accounts for ad hoc kind of spending or bizarre kind of spending. You always set aside some saving. Likewise, you will have to set aside certain areas, especially those areas which are upper catchments from where all our rivers originate, as inviolate. We need to take care of other organisms that are not as smart as we are. And it is precisely for that reason that the world moved to biodiversity conservation. Biodiversity conservation recognizes that humans are top predators. Some of us may say, no, we don't like that position, but sorry, biologically we are top predators. If we are top predators, it's also our job to ensure that all other organisms which are actually supporting our lives and our livelihoods are also given the freedom to exist. So enormous responsibility lies with human beings as a species to ensure that we go ahead at least for the next 100 years or so before we are wiped out of this planet, that environment and development are seen as hand in hand. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Swati, ma'am. Over to you.
I think I will start by saying that I agree with Jayashree ma'am when she said that environment and development go hand in hand. But what you also, one needs to also see is how do you define development? Is that's going to be important for you? And your ma'am has already highlighted some of the aspects there. See, it's not about a blame game all the time. Yes, of course, developed countries have really, gone ahead and emptied for a really long time. And now we are all in that particular situation. The problem is you're still on one globe. And we have to share it and we have to be here together. So, and what we need to do is now, that's what I always think, is to put my house in order first. So for me, I would, yes, I need finances. I need resources to do this work. Yes, of course, a lot of things are not so easy. It would need technology. It would need, developed country, provision of finances to us, and many other issues are there. However, but I think we also need to do this on a very minutest of scale. For example, it just starts from your home. The problem is we are not looking at it from that. You always look at it what the government is doing. The government has certain policies to do, which is fine. Now, it says single-use plastics, by next year, 2022, it's going to have a ban and everything was going to start and everything. But I just look back into your own homes and see how much plastic is lying around. We should be doing it first at hand at our own home. You should be saying no to it at our own home. Making that amend in our own household is the first point. You can't say, somebody else is not keeping their house clean. You need to keep your house clean first. That's how we should go. And I think it's, if you start doing it when the other person looks at it, the other person does it too. There you have one of the best case studies to look at is how, the campaign for the say no to firecrackers has been done in schools. Today, pretty much every young child says no to it. They don't want to, fire it. It's just something that you build. Your children are much more perceptive about environment because it's being told to them from the beginning. So they are taking better efforts, to actually preserve it. So one needs to really appreciate those minute social changes in behavioral patterns that are going to make a big and massive change for you. One requiring government to government efforts is different. I think we need to also take that pledge to do certain things from our side. The smallest of things make a lot of biggest of differences. And the reason I'm saying here is because you're really, this is a whole young generation of people who have miles to go. And I think for you to actually imbibe it into your, not just into your personal life, but into your professional life is going to make big changes. And, making these changes is not really only for your, let's say, for your own consciousness or anything. It also makes business sense. It's rational. Most companies actually are able to cut costs when they become energy efficient. Most companies are able to actually receive benefits when they when they have value chains which are completely circular in nature, because they actually get a lot of business out of it. They make money out of it. Over a long term, if you would see that, buying a 5-star AC actually reduces your bills over a period of time because you have actually given maybe a few thousand rupees for a higher efficient appliance. So one needs to look at the long-term impacts your current, decisions is going to have. And it happens from each household, and one needs to actually start looking from there. Government policies, states, districts doing, yes, it is important. But I think, there are cities, towns, which have changed because the communities took the action, because the people took the action. There are so many good, you can just go and see so many apartments and societies doing so well when it comes to waste management, when it comes to actually taking care of the environment around their, vicinity. And they have done marvels. And then over a period of time, they've extended their, their realm, and they've moved on from that small space to a bigger space. So one really needs to take that into cognizance. Yes, we do have larger issues at the international level, and of course we need the finances, and the finances that have been promised need to be provided to us as well. But at the end, all of us need to start doing it now, and to make that small change. Carrying a canvas bag when you go out to shop makes a better difference, because you end up bringing in 10 bags in the next 5 times or 10 times you go to shop. And this is a big learning. One, over a period of time, you will realize that it reduces so much of wastage. Buying from environmentally conscious companies benefits. If there are companies who say that, after you use, if you can just, call up this number, message, we will come and take the product back for recycling. There's nothing better than that. I think we also need to invest our minds and our, resources into places which will really make sense for us over a period of time. So I will stop here.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Truly, you've shed light on a lot of pressing issues. And as you rightly said, first we have to focus on the things at home and then slowly branch out from there. So with that in mind, the next question to you is, what would you find as the key driver or a factor of environmental degradation in India? And we request you to kindly elaborate the answer, starting with at home and slowly branch out into businesses and then at the national level, so that the audience can also understand what they would have to work on to bring about that change. I think I would request Jayashree ma'am to answer this first, and then Swati ma'am.
So let me begin by giving you the example of other animals that co-inhabit the planet. No other animal except humans will consume more than what they need. No other animal will generate waste that is a problem for other species. No animal is greedy and avaricious beyond a point. They eat only what they want. They live a kind of, I'm not saying we should go back to jungles. At the level of households, the first thing that we need to, the point that Madam Swati Ganeshan highlighted, about being responsible in terms of plastic use, recycling, reuse. Yes, all that, there can be no dispute on that. I will use only one sentence to summarize all of it. Minimize your resource use. Make sure that the resources that you use are minimal in terms of quantity, maximum in terms of quality. They lend themselves for recycling, and they're not a problem to others. That's something that you can cut across all sectors. When it comes to fishing, at the level of communities, since you alluded to fishing trawlers, in fact, the biggest bane of Indian seas is the trawlers and the kinds of numbers that are there. They venture into any part of the world with those trawlers and create a lot of problems. But this was a country where you had closed seasons of fishing. These closed seasons were defined as seasons where the fish were actually in a breeding kind of a scenario. So those times people would never go fishing. But these days, that's not there. Likewise, there are also boundaries saying community A can fish only up to this point, community B can fish thereon, and things like that. But these days, our fishermen don't even respect international borders and cross on to the neighboring country, get caught, and then there is a big halagun. So at the level of the community also, you need to be very careful about the resource utilization. You need to keep it at a level where it is not bordering on being avaricious or greedy. When it comes to industry, I have very little to say because I don't understand that sector very much. But I would only say one thing, we all need to move to a paradigm like certain countries in Europe have done. Germany and France, they went the entire loop. They became so energy intensive, so detrimental to their own landscapes, forests, and ecology, that very soon after they realized that things had to be corrected, it took enormous investment and times to come back to where they are now. So in fact, if you go to Germany, you see a lot of forests that are beautiful green. But let me tell you, they're all secondary forests. They went through the entire process before they realized the folly and corrected themselves. Since we already have examples from Europe, I don't think we need to go through that entire cycle before correcting us. We are at a point now where taking on the green agenda, Professor Venugopal also alluded to it, taking on the green agenda makes more sense business-wise, also in terms of what can be done to the local ecology. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Swati ma'am, could you please elaborate on the same?
I think, environmental degradation at the home level, for me, one is obviously there is a lot of issues of waste, and ma'am has actually put it very pointedly and very, in a precise manner that, minimize your resource use. But also, I think valuation of the resource itself is a very, very major issue. Water is not valued. You price energy, but you do not price water. And the problem is because you do not price it, the way you use the resource, it's also become, free-handed. That's one of the most, and this is a country which is going to go through a major water crisis over a period of time, because every study which has been done up till now keeps telling you about the impending water crisis that's going to happen. So one needs to really then value the resources the way it is, and use it appropriately, as ma'am said, like minimally as much as possible. But one is valuation is very important, so that you can also ensure that there is a control over the resource use. Water is obviously everybody's right, but everybody needs to also use it responsibly. That is very, very key. I think we all need to, think of ways to ensure that the valuation of resource is, determined appropriately, so that it is also used responsibly and with accountability. That's one thing. This also at the level of, let's say, states or everything, I think India, there are many states who are doing well. Sikkim is doing 100% of organic farming. Recently, Lakshadweep and Andaman have already been said that they are 100% renewable energy, generate resource-based, islands and UTs. We have already, there is plans to actually look at Ladakh for a carbon neutral, setup as well, to change the UT. So I don't think so. We are not working towards it, but it's also a very interesting realization that, a lot of your interesting sustainable work is happening at a district level, community level, at that, at a very nascent, at a very localized level. And the reason is also because sustainability has to have a very customized and a localized approach. Because what works for maybe one particular coastal region may not work for the same coastal region somewhere else, because they have something else. So somebody would have, let's say, very close to places like Sundarbans, but some other coastal area may not have something. It may be a very different setup. The marine ecology may be completely different from the other side of the world. So obviously you can't have the same type of approaches. Yes, you can have an overarching, a concept and an approach and a policy, but not the same thing over and over and again. So you would see that communities have actually taken it up in very interesting ways. You will not, the blue certification, for the beaches. We have now almost 10 beaches who have received blue certification, which also tells you that a lot of communities are working in these areas to make it a little bit more cleaner. You have cities like Indore who have really taken, the push to actually make it as clean as possible, and make the place as pristine, the city as possible, which is a major thing. Have focused on cleanliness, sanitation, and all of this is very much linked to a lot of your sewage treatment, waste management, so many other things. So one needs to also see how you're taking it. On a global level, obviously, we have already discussed quite a lot on how India is doing and what we are trying to do. But we all need to understand that, whether it's home or whether it's state, whether it's and globally, even the smallest of steps, it's not bad to take a small step. It's actually a major thing that if a community is actually doing something to safeguard its own environment and its resources, it needs to be really taken into account and to be hailed, actually.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now that you pointed out the water crisis and those aspects that India, or as such the world, is staring at, I would want to further delve upon it, because considering that in India still a large chunk of population relies on agriculture, and if we come down south, there are water intensive crops which are grown even during droughts, or and even farmers face livelihood issues during such times. So as an alternative to that, because we see that there are interstate water disputes asking or determining who has right over the water, etc., etc. So beyond this, as a solution, what are the alternatives that we can look forward to, whether it is with respect to agriculture or whether it is respect to even domestic usage within our homes, be it not using shower instead of showers, taking a bath of water, or something like that. So what are those things that we can look up to or see as a solution to solve this water crisis at a domestic level, at an individual household level, at a state level, and at a national level? So starting with Dr. Jayashree Venkatesan ma'am, and then followed by Ms. Swati Ganeshan.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again, it begins with the recognition that water, at least for India, is an extremely limited resource. That needs to be recognized across. I'm talking about fresh water. Fresh water globally itself is highly limited. only 3% of the water that's globally available is fresh water, of which only 1.5% of the 3% is the one that we can actually extract for use. That is the kind of data that should highlight the fact that fresh water is highly limited. It's further limited in India primarily because we are monsoon dependent, especially in peninsular India. While the western states have the privilege of having at least the southwest monsoon, the eastern states, eastern peninsular states, have only the northeast monsoon. The southwest monsoon is blocked by the western Ghats. This is rudimentary. Everybody knows this. But surprisingly, we treat water as if it's a resource that is ad infinitum. It's available for posterity in whatever kind of volumes that you think. That is why instead of supporting farmers with MSP that is realistic, pragmatic, also beneficial, we give out doles saying we will not tax you, we will not charge you for the power. You have free power to extract water. So where you should be incentivizing, we hold it back. Where we should actually be holding it back, we try to incentivize. Some amount of correction, mid-course correction is required. As long as you allow people or you facilitate the use of or the practice of water-intensive crops. Water-intensive crops are essentially paddy, sugarcane, turmeric. These are the ones that dominate the water-intensive crop scenario. As long as you keep indirectly incentivizing people to extract groundwater, there is no means by which you can change people to go into less water-using crops. One of the things that farmers ask us, because this also has a human-animal conflict, so this is a subject that I often deal with at the level of communities. When we actually talk to the farmers, he'll ask us point blank, okay, I will grow ragi or jonna or whatever it is. Who's going to buy it? Will you buy it? Year after year, there are 100 farmers in this village. Will you buy all our stuff? So these are all very pertinent questions, maybe asked in a very direct manner, but it's very pertinent. So unless that is corrected, it's not going to happen. At the household level, the same story. In fact, we are as a country, as Indians, we are very fond of getting rid of all our waste into water. Since we wash everything with water, we extend it to a level where if something has to be gotten rid of, we drop into a lake or a water body or a river. We think the river will wash it down. You just have to stand near Godavari, banks of Godavari during floods. The kind of muck that comes into the water is unbelievable. The same goes for any of these rivers. So we need to ensure that that attitude needs to change, and it is going to change only over a long period of time. We need to treat water with respect. And the third and the most critical thing where water needs to be conserved is all our upper catchments are going through a process of degradation, especially in the Western Ghats. If you look at the rivers that originate and drain from the Western Ghats, most of the upper catchments are compromised, except down south when you come to parts of Karnataka, South Tamil Nadu, and parts of Kerala. The rest of the areas, it's gone for a toss. So that is why your rivers start from perennial, they have started becoming highly seasonal. When they become seasonal, you start fighting over water. Your fighting is, I mean, maybe politically incorrect thing to say, but you're fighting over a resource that is non-existent, is how I would describe the water conflicts. All of us need water, and there are always historically upper catchment, lower catchment issues. But we are now at a point where the water is not only not available, but worse still, thanks to climate change, it's also highly erratic. In fact, if you look at Tamil Nadu, which I'm very familiar with, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, these days you get rains when it's least expected. So much of the water that actually falls on ground goes to the sea. So we're caught in a catch-22 kind of a situation is how I would describe. I don't know whether I've answered your question, but this is how I would answer it. Thank you.
Indeed, ma'am. Swati Ganeshan, ma'am, over to you.
So for me, I think when it comes to water, obviously you have these home rules of switching off your tap and everything, which you are supposed to do anyway. But because I will not read into, because ma'am has already answered quite a lot on many of the issues with water. What I would actually look at it is the fact that much of your water use in many areas, specifically freshwater use, can actually also be converted into use of reusable water. like for example, in industries and many other, specific setups where sectorally you require, you can utilize, wastewater, treated water as well. And, these are some areas which we really need to see how we can really do it well. That's one aspect. Second, I think from a water perspective as well, we also need to see how it has relates to other sectors. How water relates to food, how water relates to energy, the food, water, energy nexus, as they say. One needs to really understand. Ma'am talked about, how energy, you're providing energy and then you're not paying for the power or, things like that. But it's very interesting is that, sometimes you're providing a source like energy for agriculture purposes. But what it is doing is that you use the same energy to extract another resource, which is depleting on a faster scale. And you're leading to, reduced water tables and extensive reduced water tables because you have been using it excessively because it's really a well. All right. So one needs to really balance it out and also create a lot of awareness of where it is really going. At the end of the day, an agriculture, a farmer is very poor. Obviously, he's looking at the then and now. But for each and every person, I think one needs to also understand how you're over a period of time, what you really need. For example, just a simple change in your food choices really trickles down all the way to a farmer. He will start changing his, what he reaps and sows if you change your food choices. It's a country which used to have millet at one point of time, and now it has something, other things on our palate. And now millet has become this very expensive food, a food that is only used by people with a lot of money in their hand because it's expensive. But and as ma'am said, a lot of people are ready to grow it, but they don't know where to market it. Building sustainable food chains, building that whole value chain is very, very important for a lot of your good sourced food to actually be utilized. A lot of food can be actually grown without too much water also. One needs to also see what can be a good source of nutrition while also be susceptible to everybody's pockets and table, and yet be something that the farmer will reap benefits out of. I think it's a collective decision making that one needs to also see. And as ma'am said, you minimize your resource use, but you also intelligently choose what you really need to put into that basket of resources that you're going to use. One needs to really find out what you really want to do. A lot of people, at one point of time, you were not farming something, but now you're farming something because there is a demand for it. For example, avocados in Latin America now have become one of the largest emitters because they are being grown and then they are traveling all the way to the US, and one of the largest emitters, emissions that are coming from the growing of avocados, it's really big. But because everybody now wants to have an avocado a day, but one also needs to understand what it really, how much of it is really, sustainable for all of us. That is the reason I said, if you are actually buying locally farmed resources, maybe 20 kilometers within your range, 30 kilometers within your range, it reduces quite a lot. But it also says that, you're localizing your food preferences. You will obviously not have everything on your palate the way you will always have. But then it may become something of a conscious choice you may have to take up in the next 10, 15 years, because you really don't have any other choice to do so. Because you may not, and one fear I have is that my son will never have the same choices at the end of the day, because he may have to really cut down on the kind of options he may have. He may be paying significantly 100 times more for water than what I am actually paying now. So one really needs to, look at it inward. I'm looking at it from my personal experience. The reason why is that when I look at it from my own inward experience, I'm able to also calculate what it really is going to happen. And when you internalize it, you will also be able to see what are the things that really matter and how you're going to take it forward. For a lot of people might think, we are all lawyers here, potential lawyers. What would some of this technology or biodiversity mean to us? But pretty much all of you are going to be part of the policy making. You're going to question policies, you're going to argue them, you're going to probably part and be setting policies as well. Nobody's saying policies are going to be 100%, foolproof. Never happens. Policies have to keep changing because your systems are changing, your ecosystem is changing, people are changing, behaviors are changing. The policies will also change. But what you need is quite a concerted effort for collective consciousness on some of these aspects. You should question once before what is want and what is need, and because you have come to a point where you have to question that. At one point of time, you could buy anything you want and then use it and throw it away. But right now we are at a juncture when you really have to question whether you need it or not. Going to actually taking, let's say, buying handmade goods. Now it's become a luxury because handmade goods obviously are expensive because somebody is making it with their hand. But they're also very sustainable because they are not using much of energy anywhere. It's, much of it is made with very locally available resources, whatever the person has. But handmade goods have quite a lot of sustainability impact. But then they are, again, not very preferred because obviously, they may not be the perfect A-line or perfect A shape or round shape as you may want to have. And a lot of people, throwing away of vegetables that don't look good, just because their feature is a little bit that, so somebody says, oh, it does not look good. But it's actually edible and eatable. And many people actually think that it's not nice. And, these kinds of small wastages really need to go. At a point of time when you have limited resources in your hand, which is point and proven, everybody knows. One needs to be very careful of, not making that wastage. And as rightly pointed, you already have good lot of examples from other countries, Western countries, where they have actually gone through this. So it's, good for us to actually learn and, really adapt ourselves fast to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes anymore as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, like it was rightly pointed out that producers choose the products they will produce based on the consumption, based on demand. So similarly, if the demand changes, they would change what they produce. Now, if we look at it from another perspective, that is when it comes to energy requirements. Nowadays, maximum energy requirement is satisfied mostly in India by the burning of coal and other fossil fuels. So how can a change be initiated by shifting it from this source of energy to a more cleaner and greener source of energy without interrupting the economic process that goes into it? The question can be answered by Dr. Jayashree ma'am first, and then Ms. Swati ma'am.
I'll have to confess that I know very little about energy. In fact, whatever I know is what I learned in school many years ago. But I know one thing, there is a big gap between what is an ideal scenario and what is pragmatic. Ideal scenario, we would recommend that everything needs to be changed to green energy and we should go for solar, wind and stuff like that, which is there. But pragmatically, whether it will happen within a decade's time or 2 decades or 3 decades is a question that nobody has a hang on. What we could do is a kind of a step-by-step or a kind of a modular kind of transition into something green. For instance, if there is an X amount of energy required for a particular thing, and say, for example, an industry, an IT industry requires an X amount of energy every month. A part of it could be offset by solar energy and wind energy. And then slowly phase it out. Maybe also think of means by which how nuclear energy, I know this is a very sensitive issue, but we all know nuclear energy is green energy. It has other kinds of corollary impacts, that is, nobody is discounting that. whether that could be explored. These are things that have to be done on an incremental basis, is how I would understand and how I would talk about. But let me confess that I know very little about energy, and I don't want to step into an area where I know nothing about. We'll leave it to Madam Swati to talk about it.
Okay. See, I think we are already doing quite a lot to shift the transition from coal to renewables, and we have ambitious targets. We are moving towards it, and yes, you will not be able to reduce it quite fast, like considerably at one go, which may be difficult, because there is also, I mean, I'm sure because you all must have come across this particular discussion about just transitions, on how you have to actually transition a lot of people who are dependent on this particular also to some other livelihood, while you are phasing down from many other resources. So that is also a very big question what one needs to really ponder and look at, how you will create alternate livelihoods for so many people who are dependent on so many of these fossil fuel dependent sectors. So that's one there. So yes, coal is there, and I think there has been quite a lot of reduction in how we use coal. And over a period of time, yes, you will be able to, get to a good enough, space where you can use renewables. But there are many things that we still have to do. We will be doing also. Rooftop solar is one thing that many people can now actually, really should be taking into, their overall, let's say, processing and systems. Watershed, basically, rainwater harvesting is something very, very important. The same way in terms of energy, I think energy, more than the fact of where it is coming from, of course, that is important and that needs to be also. It's also about how efficient you become over a period of time with using energy. And many sectors are making that effort to reduce their energy intensities and the energy use, because it makes business sense for them, because as much as they put into reducing energy, as much they are spending less and less on energy anymore. So even the energy intensive industries are now reducing their costs over a period of time because they're becoming more resource efficient and energy efficient. So it's not just about changing just the energy resource. It's also about, because when you discuss, renewable energy, you will have to have storage systems, large storage systems. That itself is also an expensive thing to actually take account for. So, which we all have to really look at, because most countries are actually still jostling with how you will actually have big, storage systems, which are massively expensive to have. So I think one needs to see that your development is equally necessary, and while you're changing it, but you have these smaller shifts that happen. You go for rooftop solar wherever it is possible. You try and push for hybrid plants wherever it is, because you also have a constraint of space. You can't have massive solar grids because you don't have space that much. And grids take a lot of space. So you have to come up with very interesting and innovative ways of doing it. You put it up over your home. You do hybrid plants where you have both solar and any other energy source. For example, floating solar is a very good example of how you're trying to use lakes and spaces to put up solar panels and see how they can actually help you to curb, reduce your other resource generation and utilize cleaner sources. So yes. For example, moving and having a very strong public transportation system reduces a lot of cars on the road. Simple. Rather than spending on an individual EV vehicle, at least personally, I would prefer to actually go on a public transport which is EV based. That reduces a lot of vehicles on your road and ensures that you have a much better transportation system over a period of time, which is more sustainable. at a longer system. A lot of countries are moving into 10-minute cities, 5-minute cities, 2-minute cities, 15-minute cities, wherein you are trying to bring all of the major aspects or major areas, let's say hospitals, schools, whatever your daily needs and requirements are, as close as possible to you, so that what you are doing is you're either walking, you're cycling to them, but not using your car, you're not using other fossil fuel based vehicles for them. So one needs to, these are all, let's just say, these are all innovations that you really have to really ponder over and bring about. It's very interesting because nowadays you have, there are many airports which have come up. I think it's Dubai airport or Zurich, I don't remember which one. You have, these steps and these walkways which produce energy. Because as much as you walk on them, they light up the entire tunnel, they light up the street lights. So there is quite a lot of innovation that happens every day. India is like a home to startups, and every day you see someone coming up with a very unique innovation that can really help you out. So one needs to really look at ways you can actually manage these smaller intricacies. A lot of initiation is being done so that people don't use cars on Sunday in certain areas. Try and push people to walk or take a cycle and move around, providing public transports where you provide cycles so that people actually take it from one point to another point to point, transport. These all make sense. It's not just about the resource, but it's also about the other sectors and associated areas that really need to also, change and transform over a period of time, so that, your requirement anyway will come down over a period of time. So you will start switching to something else very pinpointedly.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. You pointed out to the use of EVs, etc., and how even now the government has been pushing for EVs and incentivizing it. And with the petrol prices now, EVs have also become rather affordable when it is compared. However, ma'am, but there are also certain, unintended consequences which could arise. For example, back then when plastic was proposed as an alternative to paper, because with paper there will be cutting of trees, etc., people bought it. Now, is it the same case with EVs? Because there are concerns regarding harmful effects of mining lithium ion, which is used in the batteries of EVs, or even concerns regarding the disposal of those batteries after their life. So are these concerns unwarranted, where the benefits outweigh the costs, or how is it? This is to Swati Ganeshan ma'am first, and then followed by Dr. Jayashree Venkatesan.
I think I would not say that where it's unwarranted or one thing is way. It also depends on how you actually look at the entire value chain first. I think what we need to understand the value chain for battery management, battery itself, to understand how the storage system will be developed, where your materials are going to come. Even if you recycle minerals nowadays, you're not going to be able to recycle more than 30% of the global whatever mineral resource you're going to have. That's the estimates that are being said, that even if you start recycling pretty much as possible, you're not going to end up doing it, not more than 30% of what you can. It's very difficult to take out like a 1.000.1 milligram of gold out of a phone. When you're recycling, or the, either the cobalt or the titanium which is going into it. Tantalum which is going with it. So one needs to really do, quite a lot of in-depth study into understanding how the resources are going to be big. But it's very interesting because a very, someone who is in a renewable energy technology expert also said, while the world is actually very, very worried about lithium, he said that there are technologies which are being built which don't require lithium anymore. they are going for battery storage systems and batteries, which will not require you to use these kinds of resources, but these are chemical based resources and other things that don't require too much of these kinds of resources. So there is, already thinking going on about these kinds of aspects. Obviously, one needs to treat very carefully because minerals at the end are being mined in a lot of places which are underdeveloped, developing countries with very fragile, ecosystems, and one needs to be very careful about, where and how much you're going to take and what you're going to use it for and how it's going to be actually responsibly done. That's going to be very important. But on the other hand, I think, hand in hand, you're also doing different types of things with technology. For example, somewhere they are using wind turbines, as, cutting the wind turbines and using them as sitting areas. Making nice seating areas at bus stops with the pre-used wind turbines, because they don't, it costs a lot to recycle them because you have to move it to certain places, because everywhere you don't have recycling units also. Every country doesn't have. So you are going to probably ship it somewhere else. So people are also innovatively looking for other ways to use many of these things, to how to decommission, how to use other things, how to recycle many of your products and everything. So yes, in the same way, I think in minerals as well, also for batteries and EVs and everything, one needs to also take, a lot of thinking on how this is going to go in the coming years, because it's not just you who's going to need. I'm sure everybody is going to need it. So one needs to take that into cognizance as well. But jumping into conclusion that, what is going to outweigh the cost, and I can't actually really say, because there is no big study which has been done to say that, if you mine it, it's going to really outweigh all the cost. Yes, mining will be done, but it has to be very responsible. It should not repeat the same mistakes which has happened with other resources. Then you're, going into the same genre of what you have done with fossil fuels as well. Doesn't make sense for any of us across the globe. So it needs to be taken step by step and understood how you have to really do this. That's one thing. And from EV perspective as well, I think electric vehicles obviously have a lot of, currently a market for it, but, you need EV charging stations, you need many other ancillary support to also support this particular kind of, ecosystem. So one needs to also see how that's going to build over a period of time. So if you're charging your EV from your socket point, which gets coal generation plant, but you then need to create EV generation units which are solar powered, which are as clean as possible over a period of time. And there is a lot of efforts going on in this space, because a lot of places are doing, because I came to know that the National Institute of Solar Energy has just created, these water tanks which are solar powered. So they have put up solar powered water tanks. So they don't require you to have a machine or an RO system which is plugged into, some kind of energy source, but it has a solar panel which helps you to do whatever is required for the panel. So, so many things are being innovated, and a lot of organizations are doing it. A lot of companies are doing it. Companies are taking a lot of change also. If you say, I believe today there is a report that Nestle has said that, all the executives and all the, the board members pay packages, or I think incentives, are going to be tied up to climate targets. They will have to really take note of it and strategize for ensuring that your climate targets and your sustainability targets are met, which is very, very important. And I think many people are doing this now. So, so when you're looking at EVs or looking at mining itself, yes, there is quite a lot of discussion on it, but it needs a very intensive study to understand how the global value chain is going to really work. Because the global value chain, when it comes to renewable energy and mineral resources, is highly diffused. And one can't really pinpoint and say everything happens here and everything happens there, because somebody is producing, somebody is assembling, somebody is redistributing and packaging somewhere else. So the value chain is diffused, and one needs to really understand it to the minute and granular level to give that particular idea of what it's really going to have, kind of an impact it's going to have.
Dr. Jayashree Venkatesan, ma'am, your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Madam Swati just said, and additionally, a couple of points. The first being, like, we were able to get away with a lot of things in the past, primarily because we did not have the doomsday predictions coming true. We did not have climate change as a realistic kind of a factor hitting us. Climate change was out there, it was in theory, it was being presented in conferences, and it was being published in journals. Now that it has come home and hit us rather badly, and repeatedly has been hitting us, not just the small villages and towns, but also the big cities, we are now pushed to a point where for every issue that comes up, or every issue that's said to be detrimental, even for the kind of unforeseen or unanticipated corollaries or fallouts of the EVs, we already have started investing in the technology, in the think tank kind of a thing, to come up with alternatives. We are actually constantly innovating. That's a market change that we noticed at least over the last 20 years. The earlier laid back kind of an attitude that you produce something and you believe you've solved the world's problem is gone. It's gone globally, more so in India. That's the first thing that I would say. So it will evolve. As Madam said, it will evolve, and it will come to a point where the fallout will be much lesser than what it is currently. We cannot say it will be a kind of a zero, kind of a net zero kind of a scenario. Nothing is net zero in this world. The minute you start using something or you innovate on something, there will be a fallout, and it's only a percentage of difference as to what is highly detrimental and what is not as detrimental as the other case may be. The second thing that I think as youngsters, you and as senior people, we need to take cognizance of is the fact that mining always has a kind of a social connotation. Because if you really look at where exactly mining happens, it's an ecologically fragile area very often. And it is here that the country's poor live. So whenever we recommend that areas be opened up for mining, we need to bear in mind that it is not an area which is devoid of any life form. And it is not an area that will not have a social fallout. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. If you really look at what's happening with the mining sector in India, at least, you'll find that wherever there are new proposals for mining, you would invariably find marginalized communities protesting, because we haven't thought it through. We recommend mining based on resource availability. We don't think of the fact that there are communities there who've been living there for generations, and it is because of their prudence and their low intensity lifestyle that this resource stands protected. That angle we never think, we always fall short. So that is something that I would urge all of us to consider before we make recommendations.
Indeed, ma'am. That's so true. Thank you so much to both the panelists, the esteemed panelists, for your beneficial and informative views. I'm sure that the audience highly benefited out of it. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. However, due to paucity of time, we are not able to ask all the questions provided by the audience. If it is fine with the esteemed panelists, we'll mail them to you, and we'll seek your answer regarding the same. Your thoughts.
Sure. I'll happily do that.
Sure. Thank you so much. Our team will definitely send a mail of all the questions that were sought by the audience, and we can accordingly take it forward, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. The talk was really informative, and your views have been very beneficial to us, students of law, practicing lawyers, I'm sure, as well, and the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
All of you for your valuable discussion and disseminating information. And I also thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor for sparing his
Jayashree
valuable
Venkatesan and Swati.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I was listening to your talk continuously, and so it has been very useful for me so that I can air your views and issues in some other forum.
Thank you, sir. That's very nice of you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you
very kind of you,
nice.
sir. Very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, Niharika.
Thank you.
I would once again like to thank the panelists. Truly, it was an enlightening session, and there are a couple of questions from the audience, as said by Satyajit. We will send the questions to you, and I'm sure they have definitely benefited from this panel discussion. Now moving on to the next segment, we would like to launch or establish the India at 75 dialogues, which is going to take place as a part of the ULC MUN. So just a small brief about the event. Now, University Law College Model United Nations has created a unifying platform to cater to the unique diversity in India. As a part of this, ULC is organizing the India 75 dialogues. So it is with great honor, I would like to invite all the participants to take part in these dialogues, which is going to be organized on the same dates as the Model United Nations, that is 8th, 9th, and 10th of October. The India 75 Dialogues aims at providing a platform to all the participants to deliberate, discuss the pressing issues faced in India, and provide their unique ideas and solutions to tackle these issues. We shall now play a video depicting the India 75 Dialogues and what we aim at offering. We request all the interested participants to register to be a part of this event. The registration link for the same shall be shared on all the social platforms of the ULC MUN.
Okay, Niharika, are you displaying the flyer of fourth event?
Yes, so we will be displaying it as soon as the vote of thanks is done.
Okay. No, I think better do it now only.
All right, sir.
Okay.
So as a part of the ULC MUN Samvaad, on the 4th of October at 5:30 p.m., the next panel discussion shall take place. The details for the same can be seen on the screen. The topic for the discussion shall be liberalization of the space sector in India. We have esteemed guests invited for this panel discussion. First, we have invited Professor Dr. V. Balkista Reddy, Professor of Law and Registrar Director, Center for Aerospace and Defense Laws, Director, Center for Tribal and Land Rights, and Course Director, LLM, International Trade and Business Laws, Nalsar University. The next panelist shall be Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhatt, Professor of Law, Director, Center for Aviation and Space Laws, the West Bengal National University of Judicial Science. And the final panelist shall be Ms. Deepana Gandhi, Senior Guidance, Navigation and Controls Engineer, Team Indus, Axiom Research Labs, India. We request all the interested at 5:30 p.m. for the next panel discussion. With permission, shall I now proceed to the vote?
Yeah. We will end the Okay, thank you very much.
So we'll offer a formal vote of thanks. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
I would like to thank the panelists for today, Dr. Jayashree Venkateshan ma'am and Ms. Swati Ganeshan ma'am, for taking time off their busy schedules and being a part of this panel discussion. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dr. K.R. Venugopal sir for rendering the keynote address and gracing this event today. I thank Professor Dr. Suresh P. Nadagowda sir, Honorable Principal and Chairman, University Law College, Bangalore University, for his guidance and support throughout this event. I now thank Professor Dr. V. Sudev sir, former Principal, University Law College, Bangalore University, for his support and guidance throughout our event. Next, I would like to thank Professor Dr. N. Dashrath sir, Dean Faculty of Law, Bangalore University, for always being a constant support and guidance. I thank all the faculty members of University Law College, Dr. N. Satish Gowda sir, Assistant Professor, Dr. Jyoti Vishwanath ma'am, Assistant Professor, and Dr. L. Chandrakanti ma'am, Assistant Professor, for their constant support and guidance in all our endeavors. I would like to thank all the participants for joining us today, and I hope it has been a fruitful and informative discussion. Thank you all. We look forward to hosting you again on the 4th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, VC sir. Namaste, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Namaste.
Niharika, a small amendment in the vote of thanks, sir. All Satish Gowda, Dr. Chandrakanti, and Dr. Jyoti have become now associate professors.
Okay, so I apologize. I will make the amendment. I'm so sorry.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.